Good evening. My name is Mr. Jewett, as I think most of you know. This is DP English Literature that I'm going to be focusing on today. This is the second year of a two-year course. A little bit about me. I've been teaching for over 16 years, I think even 17 at this point. And I've taught all around the world in Korea, in the US, and Albania. I've taught from middle school all the way up to university level. I think that equips me with the knowledge of where students are coming from as well as where they're going. And I try to be aware of that in terms of the development curve and trajectory for each one of your children. Here at Notre Dame, I am the DP coordinator. I am also the extended essay coordinator, and of course, I'm an English teacher. My background is in literature and English, but I also have a great deal of IB training. So if you have any questions about either of those things, I'm happy to answer them. My overall philosophy is one where I really seek to empower students, to make them feel empowered, but to make that a legit claim, where students are independent, they are confident in their abilities to analyze literature, to develop a line of inquiry, and that they're doing that effectively and continuing to get better. I'm also connected to NDA with my own son. I'm very excited to have him here at NDA in an IB program at Ameris Catholic School. This is the second year of the course. It's an HL course, so there is some extra contact time. I meet with your children as part of the sort of regular schedule, but also on Mondays in Irish time. There are some mass meetings we also have. There's, I believe, about 3 or 4 of those throughout the year. This may be a full diploma course, or students may be seeking a course certificate. That really isn't important in terms of what they're learning in the class. They're going to be learning the same thing regardless of their designation. It just comes when they're registered with the IB for exams. A big focus of the course is student choice. They have a learner portfolio in which they explore their own interactions, their own analysis of texts, and that is going to help them on their assessments where they have to really identify a line of inquiry and do the research and develop that and show evidence of that development for me, but also external IB examiners who are going to be taking a look at their work. In general, you are going to see your son or daughter moving through what I call the ladder model, which you can see at the bottom of this slide. This is where they move from summarizing something, showing they understand it, into taking it apart, talking about those author choices that are made as the text is constructed and what those elicit from an audience. They're also going to try to kind of piece all that together into a larger interpretation of not just the superficial meaning, but what is on a deeper level this text saying. And of course, why is this important? Is that last step, that significance. Students need to understand that in order for a text to matter, it has to be meaningful. And so they're going to seek ways to connect it to what's going on in the world or in their own lives or in relation to other works of art or texts. The other thing to consider are the IB areas of exploration and course concepts. These are things that students seek to connect to texts. Last year, we spent a great deal of time talking about time and space. We also this year are starting off the unit on the American South and discussing the literature of the American South, how the American South has been constructed through text and literature, and really examining the many different perspectives to help them do that. All the time, we're also looking at how text is constructed, which relates to readers, writers, and texts. And of course, that sort of interplay between texts, which is intertextuality. And along with these, we're looking at these course concepts and how these play out in different texts. Students have some flexibility in terms of what they may see as being a primary concept that they can connect to a text. There are also general aims for literature courses, language and literature courses in the IB. You can see those here. These in general relate to developing the ability to interpret a text, analyze a text, to develop a love of reading, to be good communicators, to understand the context in which texts are written, and just in general to prepare them for college as well as just being effective thinkers and communicators. The assessment objectives reflect this as well. They need to know, understand, and interpret. They need to analyze the parts that make up a text, and they need to be able to communicate their ideas in a written and spoken manner. When it comes to how they are assessed, there is IB assessments, and that will become a bigger issue this year. Last year, they only had one IB assessment officially, but there will be several this year. Of course, their NDA marks, as reflected on PowerSchool, are important to consider. There is some overlap in cases between these, but the NDA marks is what is reflected on their transcript. It's all the coursework that they're doing that is graded in this course. Some of those also will be IB assessments. Summatives are 80% of their grade, formatives are 20%. This is as things have been throughout their high school career. The learner portfolio is a really essential element of this course. Last year, I really assessed this quite formally because I want students to put time into what they are doing that reflects their own interaction with each one of these texts, because this is going to be how they pick out things to explore in these larger IB assessments. So this is really all the work that they're doing in the course. They have to do reflections on each unit. In some cases, they have to do tracking documents to analyze different literary elements within fiction. It's going to vary from unit to unit, but this is where they're just collecting everything. The IB does require this, first of all, to ensure academic honesty, where they can sort of see the seed of an idea really grow and develop. But it's also for the students, so they can hopefully make connections between texts that maybe are studied even a year or more apart. When it comes to assessments, there is one internal assessment this year, and this will be happening at the end of this first semester. This is an individual oral, and what this essentially is the student is choosing 2 different texts that we've read and extracts from those. One needs to be written in English, one needs to be written in another language. They can choose any 2 texts that we have read up to this point. They need to then choose a global issue and look at how these 2 texts deal with that same global issue, but also analyze how, in terms of literary choices made by the author is constructing the text to sort of convey a message about that larger global issue, and then they're comparing the 2. A lot of moving parts, a bit complex. We're working to get them prepared for this, to get them comfortable speaking in front of a group. It will ultimately just be me and them, and we'll be recording that and sending that to the IB. It's just an audio, not video. And this forms the basis for their internal assessment, which is 20% of their overall IB mark. I also will mark this, and they will get a grade in their PowerSchool gradebook. And those grades then will be sent to the IB. They'll listen to a select number of the individual oral these internal assessment individual orals, and they'll moderate based on how they mark those. And essentially what that means is if I gave a student, say, a 30 out of 40 marks, which is actually quite a good score, they might listen to that and say, oh, maybe I was a little bit too lenient, and they would give that a 28. Or maybe I was a little bit too strict, and they would give that a 32. And then they look at other students and basically apply that moderation to them as well. However, their grade in terms of our Notre Dame Academy grade, that would not change. That would remain the same, regardless of whether it's moderated up or down or stays the same. External assessments. These are what happen in May, basically after the course is over. We're preparing students for these. They sit for 2 exams in literature and several exams in other subjects. And these are a literary commentary and then an essay. Literary commentary is where they get an unseen text, or likely unseen, actually 2 of them, and they have to basically dissect what's going on in here. And this is where that ladder model comes in handy. It's not just a superficial kind of restatement, but they're analyzing author choices. They're looking to develop a deeper interpretation of those. The second thing is their essay, and this is related to things that they've read in the course. They get to choose 2 works that they've read and develop a comparative essay in relation to a question that kind of frames the relationship between aspects of 2 works that they've read. Students have done quite well on this in the past. This is a challenging essay. This requires them to really have understanding and also an analytical approach to multiple works that we've read, and this is where that learner portfolio comes in handy. In terms of what we're reading in the course, during semester 1, we are focusing on the American South. We are finishing up the essential works of Martin Luther King. Students read this over the summer. Now they're doing analysis of rhetorical choices. And we're also looking at some works by James Baldwin. We looked at, just to give them context in terms of what was going on in the US at this time, also some extracts from March by John Lewis. And we're going to be transitioning now into sort of what happened before that in the South, and looking at Flannery O'Connor and William Faulkner, and really trying to think critically about how the South has been represented in literature and just constructed in the mind of, I think, America in general. In semester 2, we're going to move into 3 texts that really look at heroism and the construction of the hero archetype, be a bit critical about how relevant that is today, how this may have evolved, but we'll be looking at Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, we'll be looking at Macbeth, and then we'll be looking at Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. There are a variety of supplementary texts we'll be looking at in both semesters to really help students access these and connect to these. And the key is really to look for those connections, but also to be able to dissect them in a literary manner. The syllabus is available on ManageBack, so I encourage you to take a look at that. It's essentially a lot of the information I provided here, but in more detail. Also be aware that IB exam registration is going to be happening soon. I will be sending an email to all of you with a registration form that you'll need to fill out, just indicating which exams students will be taking. My hope is that all of your children will be taking all of the IB exams in the classes they're registered for. I'll be available for questions if you would like to know more about that, but be on the lookout for that email probably next week. And if you have any questions, I look forward to talking to you on the 17th between 7 and 8 p.m. Thank you very much.